Hey everyone, as always, Dylan Miller Prospecting, and it's championship time. More specifically, it's the semifinals. We started with 16 sellers and 16 bags of Paydirt, and now we're down to 8 sellers with 8 bags of Paydirt. Now, in the previous battle, sellers were only judged by their ROI and nothing else. But in this battle, not only are they going to be judged by their ROI, but they're also going to be judged on things like customer service, shipping, and description. Now, before I flash up all of these descriptions, I need to thank all of my Patreon members, because without my Patreon members, I wouldn't be able to make videos like this. So thank you all very much, including 4 of my oldest Patreon members, Joel Jeffrey, Jason Gastoni, Alan Bolding, and David Edgar. So thank you and all my other Patreon members very much. And if you want to support this channel, you can go check me out at patreon.com/Miller Prospecting. And now let's flash up all 8 descriptions, go to the overhead, and check out these bags of Paydirt a little bit closer. As you saw, some pretty good descriptions and some not so good as well. I had ranges from 4 all the way up to 10, but there was only 2 of these sellers that actually had a 10 description, but we'll get into that much later in the video. Here are the Paydirts that made it into the semifinals, and you'll also notice that there's only 7 bags here, because out of the 8 teams who moved on to the semifinals, unfortunately, one of those sellers was not selling Paydirt after my last battle. And they didn't sell Paydirt for about 60 days before they actually got any more in stock. And that was well after the time my secret shoppers had already ordered Paydirt. So unfortunately, Blue Tundra Gold was knocked out of the semifinals. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this championship over multiple months is to find a champion that is not only the best Paydirt seller, but a consistent Paydirt seller. And unfortunately, Blue Tundra Gold just doesn't sell on a consistent basis. He does sell Paydirt, and it's really good Paydirt. He actually had a great ROI, but unfortunately, he's just not a consistent seller, which means I need to fill this spot with another seller, and that's going to be Gold Nugget Man, because they came in 9th place in the quarterfinals, and since Blue Tundra Gold couldn't move forward, they're moving up into the semifinals. All 8 of these bags of Paydirt were ordered on the exact same day with a gold spot of $61.57. And let's go through them all and tell you what the minimum ROIs are on each bag. We have Big Texas Prospecting with a 70.38% minimum, Bill's Dirt 82.09%, Black Mass Paydyrts 68.41%, Gold Bay 78.04%, Gold Nugget Man 66.92%, Gold Nugget Sales 78.04%, Irwin's Paydirt 75.09%, and lastly, Vendetta Prospecting at 77.94%, which gives me an average of 74.26%. I'm hoping to get a higher ROI than that off of all the bags average, but there's only one way to really find out, and that's to pan it out. But if this is the short version, you're not going to actually see any panning. We're just going to skip right to the gold reveal. But if this is the long version, let's go listen to some music and pan out some Paydirt. Well, unfortunately, this part of my video was absolutely destroyed by my recording software. I even double checked it while I was recording and everything was working perfectly. But unfortunately, once it was finished and compiling it and saving it to my hard drive, the entire piece of that file was corrupted, and the only thing I could save was this 1-second clip of right after I had written down all the amounts of gold and right before I was calculating the ROIs for those. But you can see the piles of gold, and I'll just tell you how much each one of them weighed and a little bit about them. So we had Big Texas Prospecting at 1.200 grams, and one of those pieces of gold was a really hefty specimen piece of gold at a 0.5 gram. And I'm going to be talking about that a little bit more in the final part of this video, but for right now, let's move on. Bill's dirt was 1.095 grams of gold. Nothing really spectacular about it. A couple little chunkier pieces, but pretty much all consistent sized gold. Black mass Paydirts was at 1.180 and the same pretty standard variance of gold. Nothing really fine and nothing really big. Gold Bay was 1.085 grams and it had some chunkier little bits of gold and it was pretty dirty stuff. Gold Nugget Man at 1.410 grams, a really large amount of gold. I didn't expect to find that much and it was some pretty chunky gold there. Gold Nugget Sales, 1.070 grams of gold and it was a little bit on the smaller size, nothing chunky and nothing super fine. Irwin's Paydirt at 1.150 and this was the brightest, shiniest gold out of all of them. It was extra clean. It kind of looks exactly like the old Lynch Mining gold. Irwin's Paydirt is pretty much the exact same as Lynch Mining with very bright gold. And lastly, Vendetta Prospecting at 1.090 grams. And this was the gold that had the finest gold in it. It had a couple little chunkier pieces, but a lot of this gold was in the really lower classification. And now let's just go calculate some ROIs and write up some reviews. All right, finished calculating my ROIs, writing up my reviews, and let's see which 4 of these sellers are going to move on to the finals next month. Now again, my secret shopper purchased a 1 gram bag of Paydirt from all these sellers on the exact same day. So the spot price of $61.57 will be used for the ROI on all 8 of these bags. And they'll also have to contend with things like shipping and handling, customer service, and description to move on to those finals. Which means there's a lot of information we have to go through. So I'm just going to flash up all that information up on the screen so we can go through it together. Let me just move to the side so I can make room for it. And there we go. Or wait. There we go. All right, so now that's up the and let's start going through it. And as you can see, they're listed in alphabetical order. And we'll start with Big Texas Prospecting, whose total cost was $87.49. I recovered 1.200 grams of gold, giving me an ROI of 84.44%. Now, earlier in this video, I did state I was going to talk about the Big Texas gold, and I also showed you some pictures of that gold because the biggest piece of gold that I found out of Big Texas Prospecting was a specimen piece, and a quartz specimen piece at that. And some people might not be too happy recovering that because it was a 0.5 gram. That's what it weighed up as, a 0.5 gram, and probably 0.2 of those grams was quartz. So in reality, that bag of Paydirt probably only really yielded 1 gram of gold. Now, I'm not going to penalize them because I do like specimen gold, but just some people might not. And if you're going to be putting specimen gold in a bag of Paydirt, you should probably put it in your description so people are aware of it and they might know that the total amount of gold they find might include a little bit of quartz. Now, again, I did not penalize Big Texas Prospecting for this. I counted his ROI based on 1.2 grams. And now let's move on to Bill's Dirt, whose total cost was $75. I recovered 1.095 grams of gold, giving me an ROI of 89.99%. Black Mass Paydirt's total cost was $90. I recovered 1.180 grams of gold for an ROI of 80.72%. Gold Bay, $78.90 cost, 1.085 grams of gold recovered for an 84.66% ROI. Gold Nugget Man, total cost of $92, which I believe is $6 cheaper than in the last battle. He does update his Paydirt prices pretty regularly based on how much gold costs. So his price was $92. I recovered a whopping 1.410 grams of gold for an ROI of 94.36%. So a really great ROI and much better than in the last battle. So we'll have to see if he moves forward, if his ROI is better in the next one or lower. It's kind of a gamble with him. Gold Nugget Sales total cost was $76.90 for an ROI of 85.67%. Irwin's Paydirt total cost $82. I recovered 1.150 grams of gold for an ROI of 86.35%. And lastly, Vendetta Prospecting with a total cost of $79. I recovered 1.090 grams of gold for an ROI of 84.95%. So some really good ROIs. In fact, the average ROI from these 8 sellers was 86.11%, and that's better than the last battle. In the quarterfinals, the average I think was 79%, and now it just shows you as these move up, the ROIs are getting better and better. So an average ROI of 86.11%. And let's move on to the other criteria for these sellers to move on to the finals, and that's fun factor. For fun factor, I left every one of them the exact same as the ROI. I didn't want anything that I personally thought to influence the decision, because what I might find fun, you might not find fun, so I left them all the exact same. Big Texas Prospecting at an 8.4, Bill's Dirt at 9, Black Mass Paydirt's 8.1, Gold Bay 8.5, Gold Nugget Man 9.4, Gold Nugget Sales 8.6, Irwin's Paydirt 8.6, and Vendetta Prospecting at 8.5. For descriptions, we had a gambit of all the way from 4s all the way up to a 10. And the 10 went to Vendetta Prospecting, who had the best description from all these sellers. And in fact, it's on every one of his bags of Paydirt he sells. He has an amazing description. He really goes all in to put onto his descriptions. I really appreciate that. So he got a 10. Now, Bill's Dirt, Black Mass Paydirts, Gold Nugget Man, and Gold Nugget Sales all got 8s, while Irwin's Paydirt and Gold Bay only got a 4. They pretty much don't tell you anything about their Paydirt. And Big Texas Prospecting got a 6. Now, again, I did not deduct anything or add anything because he put specimen gold in there. But I probably, if this was a normal review, I might have lowered it a little bit because of that. I don't know. A couple years ago when I didn't like specimen gold as much, I probably would have lowered it. But we're going to leave it at a 6. For quantity and packaging, they all either got a 9, a 9.5, or a 10, because they all were over the amount that they stated. So the quantity was a 10 on every one of single one of these bags, and the only difference was whether or not they double bagged, triple bagged, or things like that. And I will mention something out of this. Out of the 8 bags of Paydirt that my secret shopper purchased, 7 of them shipped priority mail, but most of them weren't double bagged, which is really weird because you can get these free. These Tyvek envelopes you can get for free from the post office. And I think every single seller, if you're going to be shipping priority mail, stick your Paydirt in one of these Tyvek envelopes before you stick it in a box or bag or whatever you're shipping it in as protection. Because one of these sellers, I won't mention who, from Arizona, did not do that, and their box was absolutely destroyed by the post office. They actually had one of those dreaded red stickers on there that said these box has been destroyed and to check the contents very closely for damage. And luckily, the bag was not destroyed. I don't know how the bag of Paydirt wasn't destroyed, but it wasn't. Not a ding or dent in it. The box was destroyed. But if that bag of Paydirt would have been destroyed, they wouldn't be in these finals. They would have just been eliminated for destruction. So double bag if you're a seller, and especially if you're a seller shipping priority mail. You can get supplies for free for priority mail. So Tyvek envelopes. Come on. All right, now let's move on to customer service and shipping. And again, this was a gambit from 7 to 10. Most of these sellers scored either a 9 or a 10. The only ones that scored a little bit lower were Bill's Dirt, Irwin's Paydirt, because their customer service was a little bit slower than the others. And then Big Texas Prospecting. Big Texas Prospecting, his customer service was a little bit slower than the others, but his shipping was just really, really slow. It took him 3 days before he even printed the label, and then another 4 days before he actually dropped it off in the post office. So 7 days from the day my secret shopper ordered this until it actually hit the post office. So he's getting a 7. Everyone else is either getting an 8, a 9, or a 10. Giving total scores, Big Texas Prospecting at a 7.9, Bill's Dirt 8.7, Black Mass Paydirt's at 8.4, Gold Bay 7.8, Gold Nugget Man at 9.4, Gold Nugget Sales at 9, Irwin's Paydirt 7.6, and Vendetta Prospecting at 9.2, which means I'm sure, as you've already figured out because you've already been reading the list, that the 4 sellers moving on to the finals are Bill's Dirt, Gold Nugget Man, Gold Nugget Sales, and Vendetta Prospecting. So those are the 4 teams that are moving on to the finals. And I also have to say, I really want to put out a good word for Blue Tundra Gold. because the only reason they probably didn't make it into the finals is because they were eliminated because they stopped selling Paydirt for 2 months. And the only reason that Gold Nugget Man managed to make it into the finals is because Blue Tundra was knocked out. But that's going to be it. Thanks for watching. Happy panning. And if you're not already a subscriber, think about hitting that subscribe button below. And if you are a subscriber and you want to support this channel, you can go to patreon.com/Miller Prospecting.